Welcome back to Nick Lenz Comic Corner, Classics vs. Non-Classics. This is episode number 695, and Doubleshot number 599. Next episode is 600 Doubleshot. Okay? First up, it is Y the Last Man, Book 5, which contains issues 49 to 60. And that's basically the last. This is the last one for the series. It's revealed in these particular set of issues that apparently the person who caused the pretty much causing almost all the guys that died in Dragon Issue 1 was actually caused by Dr. Allison Mann's father. Yeah, he's the one who actually did this. Oh yeah, and it turns out her father was an unfaithful husband. Yep, he was unfaithful. He slept with its research assistant, which, according to her, Dr. Mann referred to his father's mistress as his concubine. Yep. A old Japanese term. Yeah, I've heard about this. I've heard this a few times, even anime. Yeah, basically a concubine is simply just a woman who's there just to have sex. That is simply what the whole purpose of a concubine is. Yep. Oh yeah, and this woman also had like freckles on the side of her face. And it later turns out in present day that she is in fact dead. And she also tried to give Dr. Mann injections when she was younger. Oh yeah, and her father is the biggest dick in the entire. I mean, he's basically the main villain in the whole entire series, and he's also the only man who's actually alive, aside from the fact there's actually a little boy who's who's actually the son of an astronaut. Yep. Oh yeah, and also in here, I skip on the cover. Yep. Yorick finds Beth in Paris, and they have sex. And then she breaks up with him. Because apparently she wanted to move on from him for some reason. Even though he actually proposed to her, she wanted to move on from him. And also, it looked like that 355, which was revealed about pretty early on in the series, that she was attracted to Yorick. She was about to reveal that she was confessed her feelings for Yorick when she was shot in the head by a group of Israelis. Yep. Yeah, during the course of the series. Yeah, apparently this woman named Alter, who's basically short for Angel of Death. Yeah, she's the one who shot her. As for why in the world she did it, she just felt like it. Yep. Also, and it turns out the reasoning why Yorick is actually the only guy to survive is because of his monkey he traveled with. That is the main reason why. Yep. Also, in the final issue, they jump ahead 60 years in the future. By the way, the series actually passes in real time. That's the neat thing about Vertigo, is that they actually have characters actually age in real time. So even if you have characters you haven't seen in a while, like the astronaut's son, who's basically who got a woman pregnant, yeah, next time we see the baby, he's already 2 years old. Yep. Yeah, so since the series ended, I think it was in 2008, which, believe it or not, that was actually 10 years ago. Yep, so it's been 10 years since the series ended. Yep, but as for how old this series is 16 years old. But yeah, by the end of the series, I think Yorick is, probably in his 80s. Excuse me. He's kept in a straitjacket. Apparently the human race is fine. They were able to survive via cloning. Lots of cloning. There are some guys, but apparently the women outnumber the guys. Yep. Yeah, and Beth Jr. is now a leader. She's actually much older. I think she's probably in her 60s. Yeah, Beth Jr. is the president of France. This other kid who looks like Yorick, you probably think, is this him? No, it's just another guy who looks like him, who has basically the same name. And as for the actual Yorick, yeah, he's an old man in a straitjacket, kept in a mental institution. You kind of reveal exactly what happened to him during the course of the time skip, a little bit here and there. Like, he found a sister who apparently hooked up with his ex-girlfriend. Yeah, because apparently Brian K. Vaughan loves seeing it where women hook up with each other. As for who Warwick ended up with, he ended up with nobody. Even though he had sex with 2 women in the series, one of them who got pregnant, He never ended up with either one of them at all. But at least his bloodline continues, and apparently developed new strains so they could try to continue the human race. Yep. I gotta say, the final issue was actually really good. And I'm gonna give this a 9.5 out of 10. It's a really good overall series, and also, the artwork is still done by the same people. Yep. And now, finally moving on from Why Last Man. No more Why Last Man. That was the last trade. Alright, time to move on back to some X-Men. X-Men, Eve of Destruction. Yep. This crossover. Released, the storyline came out in 2001. Yep, and this contains issues Uncanny X-Men number 391 to 393, and X-Men Volume 2 issues 111 to 113, though it has a prelude from issue 110. What is Eve of Destruction? The last X-Men crossover for 4 years. That's not a joke. This was the last one they did for 4 years. The next X-Men related crossover that Marvel Comics ever did was House of M. Yep, and according to a little research I did, this was the last of the traditional X-Men crossovers, which have been going on since the 1980s. My guess is Marvel wanted to move past this, and they wanted to start a new era. An era that lasted for 3 years. Which, by the way, if you wonder who wrote all these issues here, Scott Lobdell. Yes, the same guy who did New 52 Teen Titans run. Yep, he wrote both series. For X-Men, it's written by Lo Francis Yu. And as for the X-Men issues, it's Sarah LaRocca and Tom Roney. Pretty much pick up right after the events of Dream's End, which I have that trade in order, by the way. And as for the storyline itself, the prelude issue is just basically Magneto, who's the main villain of the storyline. Also, I've got to point this out, though. This is the last official storyline published by Marvel Comics where Magneto is the main villain. Yeah, this is indeed true. This is the last official time, because after this, the guy was never a main... He technically was for House of M, but that was an alternate version of him anyways. But as for a mainstream continuity, nope. After this, Magneto was never a main villain of a major X-Men story. I don't count Planet X, because that was not Magneto. I will get to that, because I have that in order right now. Yeah. But this basically has... Now... Issue 391, believe it or not, has nothing to do with this crossover. It's just Scott Summers spending the day with his father, Cornstar, a.k.a. Christopher Summers. And it's a series, the issue is just called Dad. That's what the issue is called. And then from issue 392, also, at some point in the storyline, it's never explicitly revealed, but apparently Magneto kidnapped Charles Xavier at some point. It's never stated when he did this. He just somehow randomly kidnapped Charles Xavier. Oh yeah, as what his plans were, I don't really know, because they never explicitly stated. I liked the way that both Cyclops and Wolverine were written here, and I gotta appreciate the artist for keeping Wolverine in his Jim Lee costume. I thought that was a really nice touch, because as for Cyclops' costume, he wore this gray outfit that he only wore briefly just for this one storyline, because after this, he started wearing leather. Not kidding, I will explain what happened afterwards. Yep. Plus a guest appearance by Dazzler, Northstar, Sunfire Sister, Mariko, who actually is not Mariko, it's somebody else. Yeah, Mariko actually is dead, though she later came back. Yep. But otherwise, though, this was actually a really good storyline. Though, toward the end, Wolverine kills Magneto. Though this death was undone 3 years later, after the events of Planet X. Yeah, they undid this death. Well, it's implied he was killed at the start of Eve for Extinction, though they later kind of retcon that, and then they retcon Planet X. Yeah, it's very confusing when it comes to Magneto for the next few years. Though, here's the thing. What happened with the X-Men comics right after this one? Well, Scott Lobdell stayed on the comic book he stayed on Kenny X-Men for about 16 issues. Yep. He stayed in the book for a good 16 issues, did an annual, and then he left. Who took over after he left? Chuck Austin. Yep, Chuck Austin. Well, I've heard about this guy. Guess what he did before he wrote X-Men? He wrote porn comics. I am not kidding. Of course, after he left the X-Men, he did a very weird one for Superman, where he brought back something from the Silver Age, the rivalry between Lana Lang and Lois Lane over Superman's affections. There was even a really weird issue where Superman is unconscious and he ends up at Lana's house, and Lana somehow off panel takes off his pants. I am not kidding. That is literally what she does. Though this indirectly causes the end of the marriage of Lana and Pete. Lana Lang and Pete Ross, who married at that point. As what happened in X-Men Volume 2, that was later retitled to be New X-Men. And Grant Morrison took over the book, and I've reviewed almost every single trade that collects that particular era. I will eventually review at some point the Chuck Austin era and how weird and bizarre and kind of bad it is. Yeah, so you have a good way to end up this particular era. But I would say the high point in this particular thing is the writing. Scott Lobdell does a really good job writing the X-Men characters, though, except Magneto. It seems like he doesn't know what to do with Magneto. That's the only character I think is the weakness of the storyline, is how Magneto was written. I love his look. It's a great look. The artwork is actually pretty good up until the final issue, where it looks so weird and bizarre. And Charles Xavier shouting, "No!" Oh, because Wolverine tried to kill Magneto. Yeah, which I'm thinking, though, Magneto's Master Magnus couldn't just deflect Wolverine. Wolverine was able to stand so close to Magneto for some strange... Well, it's explained because apparently Magneto took off his helmet, that Charles Xavier was able to block him. So Wolverine was able to stand so close, he was able to stab him, the guy in the gut. Yep, that's exactly what he did. But in the case of this particular story, it's a really good story. I love the whole infiltration thing to rescue Professor Xavier. I mean, the X-Men were not there at the top of Magneto's government. Oh no, they were not there for that. They were there to get their mentor back. That was the only reason why they were there. Oh, and also, this storyline doesn't bother to explain how in the world that Wolverine and Cyclops get into Genosha. Yeah, that by far was never explained. Oh, they do explain how Jean Grey and her team get there. Yeah, Jean Grey recruits a team. He recruits North Star, Dazzler. He tried to recruit Sunfire. We got his sister. A guy with a see-through skin. No, it's not Galab, it's some other guy. And another guy who apparently has got impenetrable skin. It's implied it might be used as touchable. Oh, yeah, and also, apparently he didn't like it that North Star were trying to give him CPR. He didn't like the fact he got kissed in the lips by him, even though that North Star was just there to give him oxygen, because the guy was sent out of the atmosphere. So basically, North Star saved this guy's life. Yep. Great storyline. It has a couple plot holes in it, but it is really good. I'm gonna give this one a 9.5 out of 10. Also, they don't really explain thoroughly what Magneto's plan is. They do give sort of a summary of his history. Like they reference his first appearance from X #1, though they don't for some reason leave an editorial note. Yeah, that's something really weird about this issue. There are no editorial notes. Excuse me. If you start reading the X-Men comics in the 90s and you get to this particular storyline, and they're talking about what happened back in X #1, and this, of course, is the original one back in 1963, and they reference that here, they're probably like, when the heck did this happen? Yeah, that's another problem with this thing. There are no editorial notes in here because they reference up in Magneto's history, and they don't bother to leave editorial notes. That's one problem I have with it. Another is the couple plot holes with it, but it's still a good storyline, but a bit of a jumbled mess, though. I also got to point this out, though, about this particular trade. I actually got this trade damaged. I have reviewed the storyline. I've read this storyline a few times. It's good. Really good. But a couple of pages are missing from this thing. And plus, this trade is really old. This trade is 13 years old. Yeah. Alright, so that's it for this episode. Stay tuned for the next episode, which is episode number 696 and Doubleshot number 600, where I'm going to talk about the third Chris Claremont era. I'm going to start doing that next episode. You'll find out what I mean in the next episode, alright? But to see you there. Bye.